Hello everyone, my name is Michelle College and I'm talking to you about high-dose cyclophosphamide, also known as Cytoxan. I wanted to let you know my own personal experience and the process through this journey. First of all, just so you know, Johns Hopkins is an absolutely fabulous place to go to, and so if you have the opportunity to go there, I would definitely suggest that as the route that you take. Now, on the first day, I went in and we went to go get my Hickman port placed, which, as you can see, is right there. Unfortunately, my MS at that point was causing back spasms or full body spasms because I had multiple lesions on my spine. And so during the surgery itself, I actually started spasming, and so they removed the band-aids over here, but they were cutting in some places and they had to stop the surgery just because my body was having such a poor reaction to everything. So they stopped the surgery, they had us sit down, and as in most hospitals you would expect, well, we couldn't finish the surgery today, so we're going to have to reschedule it for another day. They did not do that. A couple hours later, they had me back in the operating room. They put me under general anesthesia, and they went ahead and placed the port. Now that night, they went ahead and checked me into the 5th floor in the Weinberg building, and at 11:30 that night I received my first dose of the Cytoxan. Now they also give you Mesna, which helps protect your bladder, and several other drugs. The thing that I noticed immediately when I received the treatment was my stomach started getting very, very queasy. So thankfully they had several good antiemetics on hand for that. I also, once my body, at that point in time, if it endured any type of trauma, I would go into full body spasms. So I had a couple spasms during that time, and I was throwing up and then going into spasms and throwing up and going into spasms and throwing up and going into spasms. But thankfully they kept me hydrated, and they just made sure that it went well. I mean, the first night that was incredibly difficult, my body trying to adjust to the medication, and I was very sick to my stomach and in a lot of pain because with the spasms I was arching my back, and so as a result it was actually pulling at the surgery site, and so I was pulling on the stitches that held my Hickman port in. So that wasn't very pleasant at all, to be quite honest, but that was mostly related to MS symptoms itself. It wasn't the treatment. The chemo, once again, made me sick and nauseous, but nauseated, I should say. But other than that, that night, I mean, I felt a little bit weaker, but it was okay. I threw up several times, and we started to figure out how to go ahead and make sure that during the process I wouldn't get as sick, and so we'll go ahead and cut this one off. That was the end of the first day, but just so you know, it wasn't a very pleasant experience. So the second day it passed very, very miserably. The nights were starting to get harder and harder. For some reason, once the chemo started, they usually would start me at 11:30, which is rather late for them, but that was because my surgery was postponed the day before and we were ready and raring to go as far as going on the chemo. So usually my medication would end up winding up at around 12:30 in the morning, and so that night, once again, nausea to a certain extent. They gave me antiemetics, and then I finally was able to fall asleep. One thing that I did notice with the Cytoxan, it does make your face feel very, very flushed, and your nostrils, at least for me, they were burning a little bit. So I could tell I was receiving something that my body didn't exactly enjoy or like, but that was pretty much it. There are one thing is that as you try and fall asleep, and I don't know if it's just because of the damage in my brain, or where the damage is, or if it's the medication itself, it seemed like it was much harder to get to sleep, and I was much more anxious and worried about things than I normally am. And so that was a really rough night, that second day. Just because every time I closed my eyes, like, I felt this very definite sense of foreboding and fear and anxiety, and part of that was probably due to the fact that my husband couldn't stay the night with me there. We've rarely, if ever, been separated like that. So the second night passed well. I noticed the next morning I started sweating profusely. And so they keep you hydrated pretty much around the clock. So on day 3, I woke up. I wasn't feeling as well. One thing to note, though, is you have to keep moving. You have to try and eat, and you have to keep moving, because that is what your body needs in order to be able to get to a point where it will be able to function again. So I went for several walks that day, and even though I was exhausted, or I'd hit a wall of exhaustion, that would allow me to sleep a little bit better at night. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you want is just a shower, because with the night sweats, you get so sticky and smelly, and you can just tell that something really disgusting is in your body, and it's killing off part of it. And so that was definitely the first thing that I did that morning on day 3, is I woke up and I took a shower and I got ready for the day in just comfortable sweatpants, and just my husband came in, and I slept most of that day. I slept most of day 2 and day 3, just because my body was absolutely exhausted, and also the drugs, the antiemetics, tend to make you drowsy. And so I would take those and then fall asleep for a couple hours, and then wake up and try and eat a little bit. Then I'd go back to sleep. One thing to note as well is you will want to try and drink Gatorade or anything with electrolytes in it, or eat bananas, anything with potassium, just because one thing that the chemo does do is it strips the potassium out of your body. And so it slowed our departure on the final day.